Okay, so we are back with another hackathon today. I kind of realized, like, going through yesterday's stream, which, man, did that feel good to be back. I didn't really feel like I had a great grasp on the capability receiver as I was walking through it. If anybody watched the stream, notice I kind of confused myself. So naturally, I kind of thought about it later, and I went back through it, and I did actually build it correctly after going through the documentation and confirming a few things. But for that reason, and just kind of like even the issues that I had walking through it myself the first time, like the documentation is great, but I think the problem that I had with it, this is a live example, and there's a lot of code in this file. So I was getting a little bit lost in terms of what is actually going on. Like you get basically brought to this line of code, but then you kind of get to fend for yourself and pick it apart and understand what's going on. So luckily that worked out. But I think like it's just something that I'd kind of like to have a little bit more of a simplified example. So like I think today what I'd like to do is just build like a quick repository just for reference that we can start adding these design patterns to, and it'll just be like either a contract or a group of contracts that just serve like one purpose, and that just demonstrates the usefulness of the pattern itself without any extra noise from any other live contract code. So I think it'll be kind of an interesting stream because I've had a few requests for like just how do I start from scratch, like from the tooling side, how do I install like the flow CLI, and so what I'll do is I'll kind of walk through those steps from start to finish today, like in one stream. It'll be pretty chill. It might be pretty boring because there'll be times where I'm just going to be scratching my head and saying nothing, but at least you'll kind of get to see like how I'd go about setting up a repo, how I'd go about installing, the Flow CLI, the Visual Studio Code extension, and I'll even set up like the Go with the Flow tooling that Bjarta built, so that we can use like the Go deployment and transaction steps to test things out really quickly. So it should be pretty good and nice and loaded with useful content for anybody who's really interested in going through these steps. I'll try to make it as easy to follow as possible, but no promises. So as usual, feel free to reach out in the comments with questions or drop an email or find me on Discord. Happy to help. And also I'll have the GitHub repo is posted in the video description. There's nothing there yet, but after the stream's over, I'll push all the code up. So if you do end up like deploying this and have any issues with it, please do make issues in GitHub. Let me know where things need to be changed. And as well, like if you have any ideas of cool design patterns that you're using, please do create a pull request, and we'll kind of build this thing out and make it a resource for everyone. So anyway, let's get to it. So yeah, this is the flow documentation. I'm just on the Cadence design patterns section. It's linked in the video description as well. So this is where all this stuff's coming from. We're definitely gonna go through. The only one I don't know if we're gonna be able to sneak in this one with any real sense of purpose is like a named value field. I guess maybe we could put in a couple of messages or something and make use of that. Yeah, maybe, because we're like, if I can, I'll put in a script accessible report here and show how to pack up data for public consumption. So that'll be neat. Anyway, yeah, there's our bare repo. Let's get cracking. So actually, let's go right back to that page. I did promise you I'd walk you through the whole thing. So this is going to be build specific. First step you're going to want to do when you're actually building a project out is make sure you have the Flow CLI installed. So that'll give you your command line tools. So if you're on a Mac, you're going to want to, I use the homebrew steps for my Mac. I'm on, like, this build is a Windows subsystem for Linux, so I would run this. I think I have the latest version, so hopefully I'm not messing anything up, but we'll do the whole thing. It's a stream, so you get to watch the beautiful... Oh, cool. I was using version 16, so we get some new stuff. That's cool. I'll probably have to read up on that, but you can go check out what's bundled with every release in the Flow CLI GitHub repo. And then yeah, there's the Windows, which I personally prefer to use Linux on my PC because I'm actually a Mac user, so it's a little bit more familiar for me, and it's just, you know, I'm not a big PowerShell fan, but if you want to use PowerShell, go for it, man. Right there. So that's your first step. You want to make sure that you have installed the CLI, and then let's see, Flow, Cadence, VS Code, install. Yeah, let's just do this. I'll show you how to use the help. Oh. Maybe this has changed since I've used it last. Okay, so Flow. Okay, so I just need to flag it. Flow, Cadence. Oh. There we go. So the next step is, if you're using VS Code, it's really handy to have the VS Code extension installed. So that's your next step. This should all be the same, regardless of which console you're using, like whether you're using Mac, Linux, or PowerShell. So if you see that message, everything's great. So that'll give you your syntax highlighting and like the deployment UI and all that stuff in VS Code. You'll see it spin up later in the stream, but that's your basically like your dev tools for the editor. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I actually need in order to get started with a project. I don't think so. So we're gonna use the new Flow tooling for like starting a project. So Flow project init, I believe. I've used this once, to be honest, so let's check it out. Flow project init. So then let's see what happened. Did it generate? Yeah, it generated the new Flow JSON for me, so that's great. Cool. So this gives you kind of like a blueprint for like your environments, and this will allow us, as we build our contracts and start to deploy things to certain users, this will actually allow us to kind of designate what goes where, give it a name, and just kind of build out our whole deploy phase for the project. So you'll see this has generated a private key for me that I'm not actually going to use. Let's see if I start the emulator, do I have that on here? Sorry, bear with me, I'm a little bit used to my Mac setup. I don't even know how to open the tray in this. There we go. So we run the emulator. I grab the key from here when I build a project on the emulator side, and that just makes sure that, like, because when I'm running it, I usually run the emulator from my my Linux console here. So this just allows me to make sure that when I have like code deployed in here, that the syntax highlighting is basically, it's looking into the same account that I've actually deployed my code to, and therefore it can recognize the contracts. It makes things a lot easier when I'm writing transactions and scripts and want to make sure that I'm actually using the right method names and things like that. So that's kind of why I changed that key. I'm not sure if that really matters anymore. Like, that's kind of an old habit that I picked up last summer, and things could have definitely changed since then. I did take a couple of months off of coding in Cadence, so I do need to kind of refresh myself on like where on what's been going on with the tooling and that type of thing. I'm a little bit of a lone wolf that way. So anyway, that's it for now. We're going to open up we're going to start like building our folder structure out. So contracts, I think we're just going to have one contract, and we're just going to call it design patterns, because we're pretty much going to be able to do everything in one contract. Make one for scripts, make a folder for transactions. Oops, not in the scripts folder. So this will be our initial contract. I think, is that a pub? I think that's a pub. There we go. So we're going to comment this stuff. I'm probably going to do that after though, once I've actually figured out what I'm building here, but I'll just say so I'm gonna have to think about, like, we're gonna basically need to come up with some named paths up here. We're gonna have an admin resource, which will be deployed within a net singleton. And we're going to have some sort of actor resource that will use our capability receiver. They will die before E except after C thing there. Somehow I'm gonna have to creatively come up with some metadata to generate like a report with. So we'll just figure out where that fits kind of as we go. So yeah, there's no NFT or anything crazy going on here. We're just basically gonna have like a pub resource interface. So I should probably move that out of here just to make things more clear. And then we'll call that I guess add capability. And I'll have another one. Receive capability. Oops. Extra brackets. So the admin resource is going to have both of these interfaces. And then the actor resource will just have the receive. I think I might have that wrong, but I'll double check that after. So we'll just put receive capability. I think I'm backwards there. So this needs to that one needs to have the implementation for the add capability method. This also does. And then this one needs the, so this one will need like an access contract. Variable called, we'll just call it capability to make life easy. So let me just reference the code there because I'm starting to get lost in my own head here again. But I need to... So like just to read through, maybe this will help for everybody that hasn't actually built one of these yet. But so the problem is, like, we're trying to give an account a capability to a resource or a contract. Or sorry, we're trying to give a capability from one account to another one. But a single transaction with both accounts signing it can't be easily produced. So we basically need like a signer to do half of the action and then the other party to do another part of the action in order to complete like a transaction. So this thing has to be split between two transactions, which isn't easy to do. I don't know if you can do it, to be honest. So this is just an easy way to kind of build a resource that has limited functionality and then allow an admin to basically enable that resource to perform all of its tasks. So I used it yesterday. If you watched yesterday's stream, in terms of like the Athletiverse project, if you're creating a league, I want to approve the users who can create leagues. The idea would be like that would be a game developer or like a major partner. So as the super admin, I have to approve, like they have to request the ability to create a league, and that builds a resource in their account that has limited functionality. And then as I approve them as the admin, I add the capability to that resource that allows them to actually create a league. So that's really what we're doing here, is we're kind of building these Lego blocks so that we can create like one big mega transaction composed out of a few different ones with various signers, just to make life easy. So this description is a little bit confusing. If I just fumbled over that one, I'm sure still not going to read this one off, but I'm just going to look into the code here and just make sure I have the right pieces in place. So this is the resource interface that defines the add capability method. And then the token admin collection is the capability that we actually pass in to the capability receiver. So I just need to double check where all that's coming from. And this is where I hesitate to live code on stream because it can get embarrassingly slow sometimes. Cool, so it's the capability for this resource that's being passed in. This is the capability receiver. So when it's initialized, that capability is nil. And to add an account using this resource, this capability can't be nil. So yeah, I'll stop there and then I'll explain some of the things that I realized about this when I build my more simplified example. Okay. Well, let's just build what I think I'm building and then we'll see if it works and then we can fix it all later. Thank you, Modbot, for moderating that. Okay, well, let's copy pasta and then I can get rid of that one capability. What was that called? Yeah, because those are named different. Now I'm tripping myself up. This, okay, it's borrowed by the owner of this, who then passes that back into this. Okay, cool. It's really just a capability. Like, I don't even think you really use the capability. It's just the fact that it needs to be a capability that only the admin has. So there's like 2 pieces to it, and it is actually mentioned in this description. Was there an actual question in chat, or was that spam? Happy to answer your questions. So yeah, the 2 nuances, and this is really like the important piece here, is like, so only the admin account should be able to create instances of the capability that we're passing in. And that ensures that nobody else can create instances and basically bypass this functionality. And then on the second side, the access contract, access control that we're putting on the variable, like on that field for that resource, prevents anybody from like copying it and passing that capability around after that's been enabled. So like, you can't just, after the super admin gives one person that ability, people can't just hack that ability into additional ones and bypass the super admin. So that's why it's important. That's why it has to be a capability. It can't just be like a Boolean value or something like that that the admin flips. So, okay, back to building. So receive capability. Which means that we need to, so I'm gonna put receive here. That's where I was getting a little backwards. And then we don't need token admin collection because we don't have that. We're going to use this. Should probably name this better. Special capability. Okay. Hopefully this is making a little bit more sense. Do I need this here? Yeah, I do. So this should be, it shouldn't be a reference. Yeah, it should be. Okay. I don't know why this stuff's so freaking confusing to me, but I mean, I'm not really here to discuss like investment side of things. I mean, more supply is more supply. So in terms of supply and demand and, and just basic economics, I don't know. I mean, it's great to see that the demand has been there, but you know, I'm not really speculating on the price of flow right now is what I'd basically is how I'd answer that question at all. Like, I'm looking at other things for crypto trades. I'm building with flow. That's pretty much all I'm worried about. I think like with most crypto projects, you're looking a few years down the road for anything beyond speculation. We're still really early building a lot of these projects. I'm still trying to wrap my head around a capability receiver apparently. So I don't know, like the best thing I'd say is just the old don't spend more than you can afford to lose, and don't chase green candles. I mean, there's from the like more fundamental side of it, like there's definitely a reason I've picked Flow as like my smart contract language of choice. I believe in the blockchain side of it quite a bit. I think it does some really special things. Like these resources, as confusing as it is to me right now, as like as you're watching my gears spin out of control, trying to wrap my head around like the most simple contract I've ever written. Um, I do think that there's so much power in these resources and like this resource-oriented programming language, like, and what you can do kind of with like the roles, capabilities of things. Like I think you're gonna see some really cool things being built on Flow, and I think that's probably ultimately the most important thing. If you are investing in like a long term, then you want to look where the developers are moving towards. You want to look where the hype is. You want to look where the good IP is moving. So I think, you know, like Flow is a good use case already. They've got the NBA on their team. They've got a lot of other interesting IP, right? The UFC games coming up, or the collection, the Moment platform, I should say. And then if you look at just the adoption of developers in general, like it seems like the DevNet, like the test network requests have just gone to the moon. So all of the like the fundamental signs around Flow are pretty good, and I feel pretty confident now, you know, with the fact that I've really just specialized in one smart contract language. I don't feel nervous about that, or like I'm gonna have a hard time if I need to find a job or anything like that. Like I think it's a good decision, and I think it's a pretty exciting project. I don't know enough about like the other like smart contract blockchains to say, you know, that one is better than the other, but again, like the resource oriented aspect of this I think is really cool. It really helps you think about things different as a developer. So like the fact that the NFTs or the assets that you create, they actually like almost physically get stored in someone's account as opposed to living on a centralized ledger. That makes it pretty like different, and it makes it like it feels better as a developer to actually like move things around like from place to place. Like it's a safer way to do it. It's a more restrictive way to do it, and that sounds maybe bad if you're not a developer or something, but I think at least I personally like strict languages. um I think I've mentioned it before, like I'm not like a, you know, bachelor's degree in computer science programmer. I'm a pretty much learned at my own pace, came from the web side of things. So I actually need a language to push me around a little bit. And that's what I find is really nice about Flow. And, you know, it's been rapidly getting better in terms of like the error messaging and that type of things. Like I thought it was pretty incredible. Some of the projects that I've been able to bang out in Cadence, considering how early on the language is. So it's about as that's about as deep as I'll get into kind of the investment side of things, but like just from the developer side, I think there's a lot of good things going on with this project, and I think this blockchain, and I think it's going to be pretty exciting to watch, especially as it gets into the, you know, the 3 to 5 years down the road mark. Anyways, thank you for giving me a breather from trying to wrap my head around what I'm building. So I'm trying, like now I know I need to implement this method in both these resources. So the reason for that is it needs to conform to having no luck with my PC today. So I'm just gonna call this add capability. It's gonna be, I just can't look at something that's named add capability with a method called receive capability, or named receive, you know what I mean. This isn't an English stream. So what's going on here basically is I have to implement it in both resources because they need to conform to the interface. So this interface says that this has to have an add capability method. I'm basically going to be reaching out from my admin resource and using their add capability interface so that I can call this method on their resource and pass this into this field. So it's implemented here, but I'm really using it here. That was a little bit confusing to me when I was building this at first, but it makes sense. Trust me. I don't even know what I'm going to stick in that special capability resource, so we'll figure that out, or that interface, but we'll figure that part out. I'm going to quickly write an init to get rid of that error message. Ooh, I'm going to get rid of that capital C. Sticking with conventions. And that's got to be an optional, because it's going to start out as nil. And then we're going to have another method in this one called do something cool. Or no, I'll name it less fun. No, I'm not. This is my stream. And I think it's just going to return a string, because that's cool. I have the special capability. So it's going to return a string, but it's only going to be able to do that if the value is not equal to nil. And the only way the value is not going to be equal to nil is if the super admin passes in this special capability. You see? It's all coming together now. I'm just gonna check their implementation quickly and see if they do any pre-checks when they add the capability. Yes. Make sure the capability is not equal to nil. That's cool. So, cat borrow not equal to nil. Could not borrow a reference. Special. So that just makes sure that we don't pass something bogus in before we set the capability. So the actor can only call this resource, or only call this method once the special capability being received. Hence, a capability receiver. Which resource? There we go. And reset the capability. Okay. Is that kind of starting to make sense? I'm figuring it out. Okay. A little bit of context. So I really don't know. I mean, we could just well, no, we're not gonna do that, but like I guess the way that I set this up, the reason I'm using like 2 different interfaces here, because I'm just trying to wrap my head around what I'd even throw in here, but I guess I could throw, yeah, I guess like this could be, no. What I was thinking is I could do something cool in this special capability interface, but then I would have to, would I have to? No, I wouldn't have to add that. I would have to implement it in here though. I don't know, you guys can tell me if that's confusing. I might just do that, but I'm just gonna take this implementation from here, pop it into here so that it actually has a function body. I'll just put the pre-check in there. We're not actually going to use this method on the admin resource. Like I said, we're going to pull it out of here. Like we're basically going to get the capability from here as the admin. This will be stored in a public path, and that's how we're going to use our named paths. And then once we have a reference to that interface, then we're calling this method that's defined here. And that's how it actually passes the capability through and stores it in the resource itself. And that's what gives resource superpowers. So I think, like, I wonder if I can just do this in the nude, like without any actual method. Like if I can just pass this capability, like this will be the first time I've ever tried to do this. So we'll just create an interface for the sake of having an interface. It has 0 methods or anything to it. Just used to enable the actor. And if anyone on the flow team is watching this and sees me doing anything wrong, please call me out on it, because I need to know. But we'll basically stick this Sorry, stick this special capability onto this resource. We're gonna create, like, when we actually initialize it and we go through our init singleton pattern, or we'll do our named paths first. We're gonna store this in a private path that only the owner of the admin resource can actually pull out and create a reference to, or we don't need to create a reference to it, but we can get the capability and then we can just call the method and pass it into the actor resource. So I think me explaining it is doing no justice, but we'll be writing scripts and transactions and kind of illustrating what's going on as we go. So let's start thinking about our named paths now. So this is basically, like, in some of the earlier demonstrations and tutorials and stuff, like, you'll see, like, we've hard coded like storage, some resource, and private admin stuff. Like, we've got all these named, or like these hard-coded paths in our files. I'm saying R, like I'm on the team, but like we've done it in projects. The flow team's kind of done it in examples, and then they've just made a point of saying like that's an anti-pattern in Cadence programming. And the reason for that is it's really easy to mess up, or kind of like you don't really want to be typing things like that out when you can just store them in a field and then reference them later in your code. So instead of hard coding those paths all over the place, like when you're writing transactions, scripts, and initializers, even in your methods in your contract, you can do, sorry, not fun, public. No, I haven't deployed any of my previous flow projects to Testnet or DevNet yet. I was working on one that has been, that is going through an approval process, but I'll let the boys release that when they're ready to go. The other developer I was working with was the one who actually went through like the DevNet deployment or Testnet deployment process. I have like interacted with it, but it's like, from what I can tell, it's pretty easy as long as you can wrap your head around like generating your own keys and filling out that flow JSON for like the development environment. Then it's pretty similar to working with the emulator, from what I understand. It's pretty fun though. Like, I mean, so with the Athletiverse project that I'm working on, the goal for me is within the next 2 weeks, but potentially by the end of April, I'd like to have like the smart contracts in a place where I can deploy those to the DevNet and actually get a few other people like playing with them and testing them with me. So I'll be deploying soon. TM. Have you? So we're gonna need admin resource storage path. So the path, like you'll notice the paths are actually typed. When I do initialize and I do set these paths, you can't use like a private path where you're supposed to have a storage path or a public. It's all very, very strict, which is nice. So we've got admin resource storage path, admin resource. So I think we're gonna put special capability and just make these things nice and clear. So that's going to be stored at a private path, so only the owner of the admin resource can access it. What else we got? We're going to have actor resource storage path. Sorry, I'll split these up too and comment them. What about you? Have you tried any like deployments or anything like that? I know a few people have started pushing their projects to DevNet. It's with various levels of success. And then we need the add capability public path. So just because the build is so simple, I'm just gonna kind of stick storage paths together and keep them somewhat organized. So this will be, I mean, those are so clearly named, I don't think I need comments. I'll just stick with named paths. Oh, cool. Congrats, man. That's dope. Yeah, no, I mean, I've been, so basically, like, I was in the open world builders program last summer, and like that was a lot of fun. That was like, so Flo put that on for free, and like there was a great turnout. I thought it was a great turnout. There was like 2 tracks, 1 product, one tech. I just kind of rolled around in all of it, and so I met a lot of great people doing that, and kind of took on way too much at once, to be honest. Like I was just self-employed and jumping from like web development into smart contract development with both feet, and maybe underestimated how much work goes into like to building startups. So I had a few really cool projects reach out right away and started working with pretty much everybody that came at me. And then over the last few months, I've been kind of just, I guess, reassessing and kind of reorganizing what I'm actually working on. So I've backed out of a couple of them. You'll probably get to know one of the teams pretty well, because I think they're really getting close. The other one didn't actually start with Flow, but has like every intention to move over once they get the ball rolling. They're a little bit more in the sports world. And then I've just wanted, like, over the last few weeks, I've just keep getting more and more excited. People keep reaching out over this Athletiverse project that I'm building. So it's kind of a sports metaverse concept, very, very early, but just something that I've always wanted to like since I learned about kind of NFTs and like the blockchain kind of gaming concept. I've always wanted to be able to play something like this, like have this kind of almost like sports, like management fantasy aspect where everybody's drafting from a central pool of players. And I'm really, really jacked on the whole metaverse concept. So the whole goal of the project is to obviously scratch my sports itch at the same time as trying to maybe integrate the metaverses a little bit more together. So cool, man. Congrats on joining the team. Okay, so just getting back to what we're doing here. Basically just naming our paths. This is a really nice way so that we can actually reference them in transactions like later on in the project. We're definitely going to use them in both our scripts and transactions because we're going to need to borrow references to these interfaces later. So it's just, like I said before, a really easy way to organize your code and make sure that you're not, making typos and things that are causing weird errors down the road. And it also gives the opportunity to clearly label things, so much so that you don't need to comment them. So the magic with those happens in your init. Sorry. So what do I want to handle first? Admin resource storage path. I want the autocomplete. Actor resource storage path. What's funny is like this is the first stream I've never actually tweet it out or put any. Why do I keep doing that? I didn't draw any attention to this one. This one seems to get the most attention so far, which is kind of funny. So we're gonna do the special capability private path. I'm not really sure if my naming and stuff really makes sense, but we can always refactor that after we finish things out. I think it's better to keep it moving than have you watch me hum and haw. Okay. So that's basically... This is the location we can store the admin resource. This is the location we can store the actor resource. This is the private capability location for the special capability. So only the admin resource owner will be able to pull this capability out. That's where the magic happens for this capability receiver. And then this is our public add capability path. So this is what the admin resource owner will borrow from this resource to call this method and pass this capability in, which will in turn allow the owner of this resource to do something cool. And I didn't put, so this is really the flip side of it. I don't have special. So this is basically the first case. Like if we run this before approving it or before giving it the capability, this will be the output. Once we run it after giving it the capability, this will be the output. That's how we know our code works. Wishful thinking. Okay, so that is named path and capability receiver. Let me just do some comments here and be boring for a sec. Yeah. Again, we don't really need to do, I can worry about that later. I'll space them out just so they're easier to read. Next, we're going to look at the init singleton. So this is kind of like what you see in the documentation is, oops, I should probably, never mind, I'll go back and find it. Okay, so what you see in here, at least in the version of the tooling I was using, the flow project tooling, we weren't able to pass in init arguments, so we needed to take a different approach. I think we're gonna try it out because why not? So we'll try using it the way that it's documented, but if it still doesn't work, then I'll just show you how to use the other way that I've been using in Athletiverse. I prefer to do it the proper way just because that way you don't have to go back and change things. But I think my spam bot got ya. Prevents long comments. I got limited resources, so I have to employ like bots to do my bidding. Yeah, okay. So getting back to the init singleton, we're gonna try this approach. So basically we're passing in the admin, like the author, like the signer. So the deployer, this authorized account object gets passed into this init method and then is used here to like save the, in our case, the admin resource to their admin resource storage location. And then link the private capability to the private path that we specified. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna try this first. And if it doesn't work, then we'll use the other method that I've been using. I really don't know if there's like a best practice or an issue with that, but I feel like they've done it this way for a reason. So we're gonna try to stick to that. So first we need the admin, auth account. So we're gonna save the, oops, I'm gonna create and we're gonna save that to self admin resource storage path. So once that's saved, we're gonna link hold on. Let me just see if I had that backwards. I was tripping up over that yesterday. Yeah, type first, then works. So we are going to link the special capability, right? Yeah. Is it a reference? Yes. Why are you yelling at me? Just because it's incomplete. Do I need it to be? Yeah, it might be the. Okay, I'm gonna try it without that and see if it works out first. Sorry for bouncing back and forth like this. So first, it's the private path that we specified, and then it's the target. So where's the capability? Like where's the resource coming from, or the resource that we're linking to located? So create our first our path, specify where we're putting the private capability, then specify the target where it's coming from. Yeah, and I think we're good here. I noticed they were using the contract name instead of self, but I think it's all good. We just do this. And resource storage path. Okay. So just clarify what's going on here. Save the main resource. Wow. If I slow down, I could probably type faster. That's pretty much all I need to say about that, I think. And then, how is reading those comments? Like, I know that black can be a little bit, like, or the dark themes can be a little bit tough to read on the other side of a stream. Is that alright? So hopefully that's clear. I'm happy to revise those comments if it's a little confusing at all. But I think that spells it out. Okay, so that's cool. I could probably and should probably test this now, which means that I'll still need to write some transactions. We still haven't done any like named, like, I mean, we have a field here, but it's not really demonstrating why we don't want magic numbers or hard-coded values. This isn't this is kind of like why we would, like, so say we had a multiplier of 5 in our code somewhere. Instead of hard-coding the integer 5, we would have a named path with like multiplier and the type here, and then we just reference that path elsewhere in our code. But I don't know, I'll see if there's a better place to like show kind of what that magic number thing looks like and why it's an anti-pattern. But I think maybe we should just test this. That'll give me an opportunity to write out those contracts, or sorry, write out the transactions, and also link up the flow tooling or the Go tooling that we've been using. So yeah, let's try that out maybe. Let's get some contracts written or the transactions written to test this out. So when we deploy, that handles the admin resource using the init singleton. We need to double check. How does this work with the flow project tooling now? So I feel like this may or may not work still, so we'll just double check that when I test that out, and it'll probably be easier to test this before adding anything else to it, just to make sure that this basic framework is working. I don't think it's missing anything. So we really just need one transaction to add the capability, and then another transaction to call the do something cool method, and then we'll set up a Go tooling test script that runs it, basically that tries to do this before it's approved and then tries to do it again after it's approved and shows the difference. Okay, so let's do add capability. So what do we need to do here? We need I was trying to think. I guess we're probably going to need the account to actor, I guess would probably be the name we use, right? So we're going to pass in the actor's address, and then using that we're going to, so we need the actor account. And then with the actor account, we need to get the add capability. Add capability. We're just gonna call it capability. The thing is called add capability. That's gonna get ugly. So actor account, get capability. So again, this is where it's nice and handy because we have those named paths, right? So this is a situation where we would have to hard code that if we didn't know it, but we could just import our almost called it that letterverse, our design patterns contract from, I think I'm just gonna make this, well no, I'm not gonna make it that easy. Okay, let me just open up Death Letterverse project and snag the account values from there. Oops. Come to me. So this is where we're starting to build out our flow. Basically our config for our various deployment environments. That indenting is killing. That's worse. Come on, be better. Alright, probably got prettier and it probably would have taken care of that, but let's not go there. I'm a stickler for things like that, though. I can't look. It's one of the reasons I like code is because it's kind of nice looking, indented all nicely and stuff. So if anything's out of whack, it's gross. So we're just gonna name this one, maybe even deployer to make life easy, and then we'll name this one actor. This can just be emulator 3. Okay, so what's going on here is we're just basically telling our config which account names are correlated to which addresses, private keys, etc., which environment they live on. So all of our keys are using this, or all of our accounts are using the same private key. And this is what you'd see if you were to generate accounts on the VS Code, like emulator, I guess. You'd just create an account and it would have this address. The next account would have this address, and so on and so forth. So to make it easy, I just kind of like to snag these. Like I like to use the default emulator key anytime I'm just planning on working on the emulator, just to make life super easy. And then yeah, I just grab the same values and kind of share them between my configs. And that is a bad practice unless you're using the emulator. And to be quite honest, like I'll probably work it out of my workflow and start generating keys for things on a more regular basis. So just feel like talking about that before going too far on and pointing out that might not be the best way to go. But for this case, it's just a really simple example. I kind of want it to be easy for everybody to set up. So if you pull down this repo and want to play with it on your machine, I don't want you to have to monkey around with accounts and try to figure out like, oh, I got to generate my own keys and now I got to use different addresses, all that stuff. So that's where this is simple. And I think for this too, I'm gonna just kill the other networks. We don't need them. It's just gonna be more confusing. We're not really gonna, I don't think we're ever gonna deploy this to anything but our emulators. Contracts. So I actually need to reference the other one here, but you can kind of see how we're using this in the Letterverse. So contracts is a nice object with, we can set like a contract name, so design patterns, and then where it lives in the directory. So the contracts. I feel like I'm on stream, so therefore I type as fast as humanly possible, but I never actually do this, so. One thing about this, so anyway, like this might be different. I don't know if we can use paths here or not. I'm gonna assume no, because transactions aren't necessarily run by the builder. So if I needed to import contracts in here, I could use import contract name from the file path that we've designated in here. And I believe the build tools just kind of do all the magic behind the scenes for us. I don't know if that's the case on here. So you know what? Let's just use the path here, and that's where we could just break things and kind of find out together. So this is in the transactions file. So we need to get contracts, design patterns. Because it is really nice to just be able to use this and then like let the tooling tell you or figure out kind of where you've deployed everything, and you don't have to worry about changing addresses as you change your environments and stuff like that. So if that's set up, that's really nice. So now that we're getting that, we can actually get the design patterns. None of this is deployed, so it's not going to actually know, I don't think, what I have here. And that's where, sorry, I'm probably jumping all over the place, but that's where I like to have my code deployed and have all the kind of tooling set up with the VS Code extension. That way this is telling me what paths I have and like the values that have been kind of the fields that have been added to my contract. So right now it's not going to do like tab completion for me because the contracts haven't been deployed. But really all I need to do is grab the add capability public path. So I'll comment as I go a little bit, and then I'll fill this out after. Get the public object. And then we're gonna get the capability, so get the public add account or add capability. I don't know if the terminology there is correct, but so again, we need to actually put our type in here as well. And then for this, we're going to need to reference the I don't know, maybe I can just pull design patterns. I didn't specify the resource that it was attached to, I just specified the interface when I linked it. So I think we can probably just do this and get away with it. So I think we just need to get the capability. We don't need to actually borrow a reference to it. However, I think we should check that it exists first. So capability check. This is a Boolean. So basically if the capability is valid, it should be true. If it's not, it should be false. So we can do like an if else thing here. Because it's a demo, we'll just panic it out. So this will just halt everything and output a message to us saying, hey, I don't know, the capability is not valid. Again, I don't really know if I'm using the right terminology. It's been a while and I gotta read through those docs and actually see what I'm saying. But basically what we're trying to do is get this and then check that it's actually what we say it is, and that it would actually return a reference if we needed to borrow it. Actually, I'm totally lying because I'm like thinking we're trying to get this special capability, but that's not what we're doing here. Sorry, confusing. So now, because we actually need to use this capability, yeah, I'm gonna have to think about naming. I'll do that in a sec after I write this out. just don't want to repeat the word capability here, but that's really what it is. It's the capability reference to. I don't know. I'll just leave it like that. I'm probably carrying way too much at the stage about that. Cool. So that's good for now. Then we need to get the private capability. Yeah, I'll just call this add cap. You guys can let me know if that's too confusing. So again, this is like the signer is the auth account. So that's the like authorized account. That one actually has the ability to get capability from a private path. So you have to be logged in, you have to be the owner of the admin resource, and that's again like kind of where the magic is coming from for a capability receiver. So this would be design patterns, special capability. Ooh, cool. Type completion is working. Okay, so that's cool. We don't actually need to borrow that one. So that's where I'm gonna do this. Special check is legit. And then if so, we are going to use our, no. Yeah, that's gross, man. I don't like it at all. Yeah, that looks so bad. So like that name kind of clarifies what we're talking about a little bit better, but that's not even good. Like I should almost just say it's the active resource. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. Hopefully that's somewhat helpful. Okay, so a little bit more commenting. Batman, what's up? You know, close-up view of my cat's tail. What's up, little guy? Okay, so that is our first transaction. That's responsible for adding the capability. That one needs to be signed by the admin, so the owner of the admin resource. And that's how we go about getting the proper account, getting the the public capability that our admin needs to borrow a reference to in order to call that add capability method and send this special capability in. So very fun. We'll see if I need to come back and like do any like forced operators or anything like that there, but I think this should do it. And then we just need to I think I'm gonna do a transaction because like that's the way I would expect this to be kind of used. So I think it needs to be, but just to be safe, do something cool, I guess is the preferred technical name for this transaction. I don't know if I'm using the prepare and execute blocks right either, actually, kind of think of it. I just need to work with Cadence a little bit more. Game, back, contracts, design patterns. This tooling and language in general has come such a long way though in the past like year. It's pretty awesome. So this one just needs to be designer, auth account. Yeah, I guess we're gonna load the resource itself. We should probably have I don't know, I'll just do it this way for now, but we can always add like another interface for that do something cool method that we borrow a public capability to. Like that would be probably the right way to set it up, but for now we can just build it this way and go back to that later. So signer, we're passing in an authorized account, so we already have the account value. We do need to get the capability, or we need to at least borrow a reference to the actor resource, so this will be signer. Ooh, do I want to load that or do I? Yeah, I could just borrow a reference to the resource itself. Silly. Or can I? Yeah, I guess I can borrow from storage, can I? Can I? I don't know. I'm confused. Maybe I do need to just build that interface to make life make life easy. I could load it, but then I'd have to save it, which is silly. It's silly. I need to get references. So yeah, the better way to do this would be unlocked capability. Put this guy in here. Oh yeah, I guess we need to actually create the actor resource too, don't we? Silly me. Okay. I'm probably going to I'll just write a transaction that handles the whole storage path thing, but we do need a named path for our unlocked capability now. So this could be a private or a public capability, I guess, depending on what the capability receiver is unlocking. In this case, we'll just make it, I think we'll make it a private path that only the owner of the resource itself can call. So now we'll need a create actor resource transaction as well. We'll just do this after. Right, so we need to get the contract. Okay. We need to create an actor resource. Create our actor resource. Again, this is the resource. We're using our move and not an equal sign. That moves the resource into this field variable. And then we just need to save that and move actor resource to design patterns, actor resource storage path, and then we need to link reference to our, I probably should be specifying that's probably feel like a better person specifying the full resource and interface, the namespacing and all that. So we'll just see if we need that, but that way I know that it has to come from this resource. Yeah, on second thought, I don't think I need to do that. That's redundant. This one though, for sure. Design patterns. So we're gonna specify where we want to save our capability to. So our private path, and our target is our storage path for our actor resource. Cool. So that's everything we need to do. Create the resource, save it, store it, and then create the capability. In like the Athletiverse, like there's events too that'll emit when certain things happen. So like the thing was created, so the event emits, and then I'd be able to see like the list of events that have happened, the accounts that are waiting to be unlocked kind of thing. So there's no events in this yet. We might do it just to work on a use case. I don't know how deep we're going to go with this though, to be honest. I think it's going to be a smart contract example, and the events would be more useful if we had like a UI to maybe like acknowledge requests with or something like that. So create the new actor resource. Account search. Okay, so this just gives us a way, like a private way, I guess, for the owner of the account resource to call their do something cool method. Obviously, real world example, this would do something a little bit more significant. The reason I'm using that private path here is because, like, if it's a resource, like if it's an admin resource or something like that, it's probably functionality that the owner of the resource should be able to do, but not necessarily everybody else. Otherwise, why not just create a public method on the contract for it? So that's kind of the assumption that I'm going with right now, and how I'm building this out. But I think that should cover our bases for creating the resource and adding the capability. The admin resource is created on init, so that's no big deal. Cool. I'm gonna take a quick break just before doing the do something cool transaction, and then we will wire up the Go testing stuff and take a run through this, make sure everything works. So I'll be right back. Poor cat is desperate for attention, so you might be a bigger part of the show here. Okay, so for this we just need to get our actor resource capability now. So that's where, instead of loading this thing and then calling a method on it, with a resource, like, I think the best practice is to only move it when you need to. So instead of loading it, calling a method, and then popping it back in storage, we've just created another interface that I can borrow a reference to and call that do something cool method without actually moving the resource. So that is why we did that. I always do the bath first and then have to go back and edit this. It's just a little weird thing that I do. So we didn't designate the resource, we just basically saved it with the interface itself. So that should work. We can borrow it because we are going to use it. And if we don't get anything when we try to borrow it, we're just going to quickly say could not borrow. I guess we can just save the interface. I don't know. Just words. Okay, so once we get that, we can call our do something cool method, which will return one of these two messages, depending on whether the capability has been unlocked. So then we can just worry about adding our Go scripting in here to handle the deployments and such. So it's kind of like what I've done. Like, I guess I'll walk through it and then I'll explain it. Sorry, I always feel like explaining things before they're on the screen, but we don't really need to do that. We don't have scripts yet. I don't have any like data to pull from the resource, like, so no report structs yet, so we don't have to do that. So I'm going to quickly make a folder called oops, not that one, and not a folder called oops. Folder called demo. We're just gonna write a Go script in here. I'm also gonna create a subfolder in demo called setup, and create another blank Go script in here, and I will explain why as we go. And then I'm going to need a make file. Oops. So we're gonna have, basically we're just trying to make this thing as easy to kind of deploy as possible, or run and test as possible. So this is like a way to avoid, let's just show you what I'm talking about. So if we run the emulator, fails 'cause on stream. Let's see, it's what I need it to do is finish booting up on me and create its default accounts. So let's see if I can do this. I don't ever use the emulator anymore, to be honest, in VS Code because of this sweet Go tooling. So I'm just gonna stop it and start it one more time and see if we can get these default accounts to go. No. Okay. Well, what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to get like the ability to deploy a contract or like execute a transaction. You'll see like a little link up here above these. And the reason I like this tooling a little better is you can just kind of script like all of that, all of those actions into like one Go script and basically create like a testing story or whatever for your code. So when you get a large application with like maybe 5 contracts and 12 transactions and things like that, you don't really want to be manually or like jumping through your code in VS Code and clicking buttons. It's a lot easier to just run it through like one console command or something like that. So I will set that up and then we'll run through it together and I'll kind of show you why we do it this way. So I'm just trying to think what's the best thing to do first here. And I think I'm going to yoink another thing from my hockeyverse because I have it all set up well there. So let's have a look at setup or demo setup main.go. So this is really just a quick thing that I do. So the new tooling doesn't really work. Like the flow project codes don't seem to create accounts. I should maybe test that in the new version here quickly. Let's see. Can I create accounts? No. And I don't think, like, if I go flow, create, or account, God, I need to know. Flow accounts help. Okay, so like, I think if I go flow accounts create, I don't think this works with the new, like the flow project news, I guess what I'm trying to say. It didn't work last time I did it, so I'm just going to avoid using it for now and just show you the way that I've set up the Athletiverse to work around that. So for our initial, we call it deployer. So what I'm doing is I need to create this account because I don't want to deploy my contracts to the emulator service account, which is this one. I need to create one account before I run my flow project deploy script. So this is going to be the first step, is the setup, and we're going to deploy, or we're going to just use the go with the flow tooling that my good buddy Bjarta created. And this is the most simple thing ever. We just create a new emulator instance, create our account, and then that's all this script does for us. So it's just responsible for creating a new account, and we'll reference that account, like we'll be referencing that account as the deployer for our testing script. So that's all it's there. That's all it's there for. That's all it does. In our make file, again, this is all stuff that I don't really use that much. So, oh yeah, sorry, I'm trying to read a file that. Okay, there we go. So I want to yoink. Like, I'm basically gonna rebuild this whole file. And I will comment things out and kind of add them back as I go. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add our setup step. So we're giving it this phony is just a name for the step. So it's setup. Then we reuse that name here and tell it which command to run. So the first thing we're gonna do is go into our demo setup main go script and run that. And then the next step that we're going to do is we're going to call this one deploy. First, we're going to run setup. And then second, we're going to run this flow project deploy script. I might have to respace things out because it's touchy in this. And then finally, after we set up, so after we create that first account, deploy our contracts to the right accounts, we are going to run our demo main.go script. So this is where we're going to actually write in all of our tests. I'm going to kill this one. This is something that I've been using for the other project just so I don't monkey up my demo script. But yeah, it's just basically 3 steps that we're going to have kind of run in the background so that when we actually want to run our code and test it, we just have to type make into our console, and it just makes life a lot easier. So I'm just going to take this. So this is essentially what we're starting with. And let's see. I'll probably just end up boring a little bit more here as well. So we're going to create the actor account first before we run any other code, or else we're going to save this into a variable. So then we can reuse this instance and start. Oh, actually. What's nice is this tooling actually prints out the event data. So I'm just going to add this ignore fields. A little struct here that just basically prevents these essentially kind of like, I don't need that. I don't need that data. So we can just add these to the code that you're going to see that prints events, and it'll just omit those from the events. Okay, so what do we need to do here? Before I write code, let's write comments. We've deployed, at this stage, we've deployed the design patterns contract. So now we need to create the actor resource. What do I have? Create actor resource. Then we're going to try to do something cool before we've fail running, do something cool. So we're going to try our transaction to run that limited or restricted method. Then we're going to approve or add capability. So that'll be signed by our admin, our deployer account, and that'll actually add the capability to our capability receiver or our actor resource, and then successfully so pretty simple. That's our quick test case. So to do this, we are going to send transaction. Oh yeah, I don't even have the library installed here. So I should probably start with go mod and init. Okay, so go stuff. Is it go mod and init or go get? Oh yeah, I don't even need to worry about that. I could probably just try running it. We can probably just try running our make file right now. Nope. So we're just gonna use this setup. Say like, let's call deploy. So we're not actually going to, actually, you know what? Let's just not mess with this at all, and I'll just show you how you use a make file. Make deploy. Just make sure the indentation has not messed me up. Alright. If there's any makefile wizards in the stream, please by all means let me know what I'm doing wrong. When things don't work, just try piece by piece. I'm trying to think if there's anything I'm missing from like our setup that we usually do. Because usually I'm not on stream and not failing horribly, so. This was happening to me yesterday. It was something stupid, so I have a feeling it's PebCac. Oh, I'm not even it. That's why. It was something stupid. In the emulator terminal instance. Okay. Go modern it, Cadence design patterns. Okay. I always forget because I barely ever work with Flow or with Go. So we're using an external library in this package. So in order to actually make sure that we have this library, like have access to it, we need to create a module in our repo, initialize it with like the name of the repo or something easy to identify, and then run go mod tidy. And what that does is it goes through the required, like the dependencies, and then goes and downloads them and all the other stuff that comes with them. So you should see this go sum file here. Once all that's done, it's a checksum. That just lets you know that you have all the stuff you need. So I'm gonna continue. Well, I'm probably just gonna deploy everything at this stage. Like, let's see if our makefile, because now everything should work. I will need to run a emulator instance in my terminal. So I usually like to use like a separate terminal window for this, just because it's, I don't know, it's easier to remember to turn off and stuff like that. Or start emulator. So I've started the emulator. I guess this is now the new way to go. Interesting. Okay, let's just try it with that. Flow emulator B. Okay, cool. So now the emulator started, we should be able to actually deploy our contracts. So did I deploy? No. Am I in the wrong terminal? No, we're good. Okay, let's try to run setup. Why? Do I still need to do this? I'm just wondering if there's a change to how this all works. So maybe the accounts are set up. I have to check the emulator. Okay, well, let's see. Huh, so that does work now. Okay. So maybe we can change this whole setup. Hopefully that didn't break our tooling though. Really not having any luck with this makefile. Okay. That's nice. Can I now do this? Where am I missing a separator? Oh man, I hate these files. I wonder if it's just 'cause I copied it over from the terminal and it had weird stuff. Well, this is not going well, is it? Problem is I'm not very familiar with makefiles. This is a Bjarta thing, so. Is using these phonies the issue? That's probably could be it. Nope. Alright. If you ever do tutorials, please don't ever do this, because this is just lame. I don't want to read this. Yeah, that's very weird. Like, I don't understand what I'm doing wrong here then. It's annoying because like this setup works perfectly in the Antipattern file, so that's what really should be going on there. Okay, so let's try adding those phonies back, because that supposedly had a purpose. Yeah, kind of crashing and burning on the testing front today. Maybe just killing this makefile and starting from scratch would be the best way to go. I don't know if there's some sort of weird character encoding or something going on maybe that I'm not privy to. Let's try just writing it from scratch. Let's just set the deploy as the all phony setup. No, I'll use setup. I think I had an issue with that before. Oh yeah, we don't need to do that. We're doing flow accounts create. Deploy. Setup is the prerequisite, and then flow project. Deploy, right? Yep, okay. And that should be it at this stage, just to get the contracts going. Oh yeah, I don't have an emulator instance, so that would help. The V is the verbose flag, just to make sure that you get output from the emulator. That is useful. Hey, there we go. Okay, cool. So I didn't set up where to deploy it, but now everything seems to be working. So I don't know what the issue was there, but glad it is no longer. Okay, so let's go back to our flow JSON, contracts, design patterns. Let's open up our, oops, sorry, I have the emulator on a screen you can't see. So I'm just gonna grab my hockey roost config again. And have a look at what we did here. So deployments. So in here, in the emulator, oops, that's an object, not an array. We're gonna not deploy anything to our emulator account, but we are going to use our deployer and deploy design patterns. So now, when we run this, I'm just gonna restart. I usually like to restart. Oops. I usually like to restart the emulator anytime I run the test, and that just clears out any accounts that are in there as long as it's not persistent. Now I can run this script again, and nothing has been deployed. Okay. Why though? Okay, so I have defined our contracts. Deployed it to the right places. Telling it to look in the right folder. Okay, well, let's just see if we need to run that step then, that first step, or maybe they've beefed this up to a point where we can just run deploy and it's smart enough to create the accounts we need. That would be sweet. So let's remove that step and start our emulator over again. I'll just clear that out. And okay, so we're just gonna run deploy. No. So let me just have a look and see if there's any like update on the actual deploy. Bear with me for a sec. I'm just gonna see if there's any posts in Discord or anything like that about it. Sorry, I'm just laughing at I'm reading my buddy Garta's comments about the go with the flow. He's put out a shameless plug in the Flow developers Discord channel and said maybe give me a star, and somebody put a star emoji underneath his comment. Not quite what he was going for. Okay, well, bear with me because I'm interested in how this works now. Because like the previous version that I was using, once we basically told it to create a contract, it did just that. Or it like created an account with the name that we wanted. So I don't know. Now I'm humming and hawing. Maybe we should just try to go back to the way we used to do things here. So let's just run this setup script again, see if we can get it working. So let's see if that works. Emulator running, cool. Oops. Doesn't like it anymore. So it seems like our Go tooling create account method is no longer happy with the CLI or emulator, vice versa. Frustrating, to be honest. Feels like every time there's a new version, something goes wrong with this tooling. Now I'm regretting going from 16 to 17 because we would have been able to have this thing working really easily without me having to figure out a whole bunch of new breaking changes. So that's kind of the frustration with working with bleeding tech software. Let me just see if there's quickly any sort of update or actual documentation around how this stuff works. Otherwise, I'm gonna probably get pissed off and end the stream here so that I can go figure this stuff out, because it's super annoying when you've built tools to streamline your development workflow, and then every time there's a new release of the software, your tools are broken and you have to go back and fix them. It's not really essential, like it's not efficient when you've built tools to be efficient. So that is echoed by more than just myself, I will say. So Flow CLI, we got a new version out. So maybe it's just because... Wow, there's a lot here. Note to self, don't ever update your Flow version. That was the biggest fail, is here's how to install the CLI that I don't know how to use because it's been updated. So maybe I probably shouldn't have done that before starting the stream. But that's how you install the CLI, and then you just have to learn how to use it. Okay. Really what I'm trying to figure out is if there's been any change in the way accounts are created. Like in the CLI itself, because our tooling doesn't seem to be able to handle it anymore. Oh. Yeah, this is my only gripe with like Cadence and Flow, is breaking changes happen fast and furious. So you'll be flying on your project for a week, and then you'll have to go back and spend 2 days trying to wrap your head around something new. Which, I mean, it's no real fault of, it's just kind of the nature of the beast with programming, but it'd be nice to not have to deal with that. Yeah, I kind of dig it. Like, I mean, it's just like, I've spent some time with Solidity and programming on Ethereum, and I've just found that like it's too easy to leave massive holes in your code. So I mean, for this one, it's like, I like this language because of a lot of like what I mentioned like earlier in the stream. Actually, I had a similar question, and it was like, there's a resource oriented programming paradigm that's huge when you're programming with Flow and Cadence, and it's really just the fact that it's the best way to describe it, like when you're talking about things like NFTs, like instead of like the NFTs living in this smart contract and always being kind of controlled and governed by that smart contract, they just behave differently on this blockchain. So like the NFTs actually move from account storage to account storage. So they actually change like location on the chain, as opposed to just changing like an ownership field in a contract. So that's cool for a number of reasons, like security and storage wise. That allows you to do things in a way that maybe just makes more sense, I guess, as a developer. And then there's also like sorry, I'm like still caught up on this on this breaking change issue. I'm trying to break through here, but it also it allows you to do, like, it forces you to be a little bit more thoughtful and meaningful when you're actually writing your code. You actually have to do certain things with these data structures that you couldn't do, or these data structures make you do certain things that you didn't have to think about when you're just using kind of more common data structures, say in JavaScript or other languages like that. So resources really bring a lot to the table. What I'm working on today is actually like an implementation of using resources in a special way to control who can do what with your application. So I think this is really cool. Like, I think it's really important, like, that you're able to kind of do certain things like this. I've seen similar things handled in different ways in Solidity, but like I said, I guess to answer your question simply, I feel more comfortable and confident programming in this language than I do with Solidity. But on the flip side, things change, and then you have to spend some time figuring out why and where they've changed so that your code works sometimes. And that's what I'm dealing with right now. Is we've got a little script of, like, we've got some tooling that makes kind of the whole deployment process of working with smart contracts a lot easier. But one of the more initial steps of it is creating an account. And with the new version of this, the CLI and tooling that Flow has put out, it seems like there might be a little bit of an issue with our tooling. So I might be kind of forced to go offline and figure this out in the darkness, and then come back and follow up on this build later, which is kind of unfortunate because I thought this was going to be a simple enough little task to bang off in one stream. But we're kind of getting past the 2-hour mark, which is where I like to leave it. So we'll see. If I can figure out this account creation issue, it's probably, again, like, it's usually just something stupid. So I don't know. I just don't know if they've changed something like with account creation that our tooling is now incompatible. And since it's not really my repo, it wouldn't be a quick fix. Like, I could go and monkey with the code myself, but I don't really want to do that. So it's Go. It's not really my forte. So that's too bad. I don't know if it's because I used like a deprecated, like if I used Flow project in it instead of Flow in it, but I don't think that they would do that to me. I think I think it's something different, a little bit more, probably a little bit more specific to how account creation is handled. But yeah, that turns into like a support situation and a Discord thread and all that type of stuff. So that's not really the type of thing I want to do on stream. And like the issue is, so what I'm trying to do is set up like this make file, which makes like deploying and testing this project really easy, because I've written the code, like this whole demo outside of like the reporting side of things is all written. The transactions are all in place. Okay. So anyway, like the code's written, I just haven't been able to test it. And like the brutal situation right now is my emulator doesn't seem to want to actually start, so I can't just use the like the Flow tool, like the emulator tools or the VS Code tools. That's what I was trying to get at. Because, oof, that's a bad idea too. Don't have two emulator instances running. So I can't demonstrate it with the emulator itself because the emulator won't do what I need it to do to give us the actual UI elements to actually deploy contracts and run transactions and stuff, which is normally okay because I'm usually able to do it this way. But for whatever reason, we can't do that either now. So let me just stop this emulator version. Let me run it. Okay, so I'm just basically trying to run this. It's supposed to deploy the contracts after it sets up an account. Oops, sorry, it's supposed to deploy the contracts to the accounts that I've designated, but I forgot that I skipped our setup step. So what's happening now that's confusing me is like we have, when I say we, a friend and I have created some tooling that's supposed to be able to handle some basic like emulator functions for us. So I should be able to create this account using this tooling and then go ahead and deploy all my contracts using the Flow project deploy method. But I've also just recently updated my CLI version to a version that I haven't used yet, so now I'm starting to wonder if there are breaking changes and I am fighting a losing battle on stream. So I'm gonna just make sure I'm not going insane and check a couple of things here. Okay. Need to run the emulator. So right now I'm just gonna try the setup. That's gonna, okay, it worked this time, great. I'm gonna attribute that to you, bud. You brought the aura that made my code run, so thank you. You've just saved the stream today. Cool. So that gets us through that horrible experience. But let me just run this makefile one more time. Created our account. Yeah, sorry. I'm all frazzled now because of that experience. One more time. Yeah, it doesn't deploy though. Is there a change to that I'm not reading? Like, yeah. I guess I can try to force it through with flow accounts, add contract. Let's see what that, like, I've never used half this stuff now, so this is what's frustrating me. But like, what contract, like what account does it deploy to? Hey, sorry buddy, the mod app bot thing just kills long messages. Let me see if I can change that. One sec. Let me see if I can change the mod bot settings. Probably move that over here. Hold on, that long messaging thing has been such a pain in the ass today. I want to get rid of that. Yeah, no worries, man. Quite honestly, like I've had a few people like kind of back away from learning flow because it's like, I guess it is intimidating, right? Like it's a paradigm shift when you're looking at getting into it at first. But I think like it does sink in the more you do it. Like I think like the more programming experience you have coming into it, the easier it's going to be, because you're going to understand kind of the the mechanics behind the actual language itself a little bit better, right? Like there's when you get into scripting, there's loops and variables and you know tons of things to think about that are very very different from like HTML and even CSS and things like that. So like once you have like a handle on kind of like the JavaScript side of things and like the basic theory there, then it's pretty easy, I'd say, to like make a jump over into a language like Cadence. Learn again like the basics there. So how do the variables work? Like what are the keywords and what do they mean? That type of thing. Just learn to write some really basic stuff, and then you can start worrying about the more advanced stuff like the design patterns and things that we're working on today. And really like getting out of your comfort zone and building things that you've never built before. So I mean, there's, to be quite honest, like I'm not much more than like a intermediate level developer myself, I'd say. But like it does, like every kind of every like small project or small build or like every day of experience really does compound off the last one. And I feel pretty comfortable in this language. Like quite honestly, writing the contracts is pretty easy. It's the stuff that I'm trying to figure out right now with like account creation, deploying contracts to the right account, using the CLI, like all the fringe stuff that you don't really have to deal with once your contract's pretty much deployed, right? So the thing I really like about Cadence, and like the thing that you'll notice probably too as you write it without a strong coding background, is it does force you to do certain things. So it's very opinionated, and it like because of that it's kind of like I've kind of explained it as bumper bowling a few times. Like it's nice to have some guides and some helpers there when you're gonna write something that isn't gonna deploy or isn't gonna work, right? So it's really good for that. The messaging and syntax highlighting and all that stuff is really helpful, especially for like newer developers. I think the team, like, they don't want to set the bar too high for people, right? Like it's blockchain and especially like resources and stuff are pretty intimidating, but the goal is to have as many people building on Flow as possible, right? Yeah, like I kind of want to just skip this whole deal and go back to the I'm gonna basically just kill this whole Flow project deploy stuff until I understand it a little bit better and just go back to doing it through our tooling. So gonna kill this folder structure. I really want this to run once before we go, so we're just gonna build this bad boy today. Gonna keep an eye on my other script because I don't know this stuff off by heart. I barely use this and I usually copy and paste as I move, so. Okay. Okay, so this is what I'm working from. We are going to create 2 accounts. Might as well print the events for it. So this will create deployer and actor. Okay. Just gonna take a quick look here again and remember what the heck we do. Transaction from file, sign proposed pay as, and then run print events. Can't remember if we have to put the. Okay. It assumes that it's looking in the transactions folder. Create actor resource. Do we need? Nope, it's smart. That's great. we are going to sign this transaction as our actor account. And we are going to run and print events. But we are going to ignore the fields we have set above. So that's our first transaction after deploying the oh yeah, I gotta deploy. How do we do this now? Sorry for the bouncing between repos. It's you're getting to see many elements of hacking on a flow repo today. Do we still have our deployer? Because like we changed this, or you had to change this all because we didn't need to use the deployer in this anymore, and now we need to again apparently, because I can't wrap my head around that tool. So. Let's see if we still have a method for deploying. Okay. Probably use all contracts there. Do it in order so that we're not tripping over ourselves. The builder pattern won't let me do this after that. Okay. Oh man. I guess I'll have to run a setup and then create the account. Okay. Guys, I'm angry. Angry that I have to do this right now. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, quite honestly, I don't even know how I'm gonna do this right now because the issue with the whole flow tooling deployment yada 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 stuff is really, I can't find a way to make this tooling play nice with it right now. So I think I am gonna have to cut the stream and talk to a few people and figure out what's going wrong and how to fix this. Because this was supposed to be like a 2-hour project that's gonna now take like an afternoon. So that's frustrating. I wasn't supposed to die on the tooling. That was supposed to be the easy part. The hard part was supposed to be figuring out how this contract works. So from the Flow Smart contract development side, that went really well. On the tooling and deployment side, I want to gouge my eyes out with a wooden spoon. So yeah, I guess we'll have to follow up on this another time. Yeah, so what I'll do is, I was hoping I'd be able to find an easy way to deploy that or just work around the issues I was having with the tooling. I seem to have hit a wall every which way I tried to go. So I think at this stage, I'll call it quits. I'm going to push the work in progress code to the repo, because I think it's good to just be able to walk through the contracts and see what's going on there. Trying to recreate that for yourself. You may or may not run into some of the same build issues depending on what machine you're actually using to code. I will probably try pulling this down on my Mac and seeing if anything goes better there. But yeah, it's kind of one of the frustrating things, like I said, with using bleeding edge tech, is every now and then you run into deployment issues on a live stream and it takes the wind out of your sails. So I'll definitely be back on stream next week with another look at, or another update on like the Athletiverse code. We started working on the teams yesterday. I need to flesh those out and figure out how to build those. So we'll either recap that. We might even be able to start working on the athletes or the gear. But yeah, it's been fun actually getting back on stream with you guys. Hopefully the first part of this was somewhat helpful, and I'm looking forward to actually pushing out the finished repo for you guys so we can use it as a reference and hopefully build in some other cool design patterns that you've been using in your projects. So until next week, I hope everyone has an awesome week. Build something cool, and I'll see you next time. See ya.